Creativity is about thinking differently and solving problems in new and unexpected ways. Creativity is about discovering patterns that others have missed and connections between pieces of information. Creativity is how we express our humanity when we choose outfits for a party, renovate our homes, write poems, come up with witty memes. What we signal to the world is, hey, look at me. I am different. I am valuable. I am creative. Creativity doesn't happen in a vacuum. Our sum total of sensory experiences, memories, emotional highs and lows, aspirations and dreams create the possibility space for our creative abilities. It is, therefore, true when it is said that our minds are a prison. Close your eyes now and imagine a colour you have never seen before, or a fantastical alien world. In your mind's eye, you'll only see combinations of what you have already seen before. To be more creative, you must have a plan in place to enrich your mind constantly with new experiences. The greater your mind's possibility space, the greater the possibility for you to exercise creativity. Remember, you can never ever say, I am just not creative. There are no uncreative people, just inexperienced people.
Hi Ali, Ian. Newton got this insight on gravity because an apple famously fell on his head. And this has been described as a eureka moment. What do you think about these eureka moments?
Steve Johnson, in his famous book, Where Good Ideas Come From, proposes that good ideas develop over time through a long-term experiential process. The notion of the light bulb moment, which is the eureka moment, takes credit away from the tremendous amount of background work and the multitudes of experiences that lead to a creative insight. Professor Yunus of Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, he won the Nobel Peace Prize, and his idea of microfinance is often described as a eureka moment. Now, solving the problem of acute poverty in rural farmer communities is no easy task. His life and work experience, training and skills in economics, insights from experiments and field trips, this is what led to a new insight. And this was original and undiscovered. And this was the insight that rural farmers are creditworthy, and they're creditworthy without collateral. Why is that? Because they have high levels of integrity. And when they say they'll give you your money back with interest, then without a doubt, they always do. And that's the basis for Grameen Bank and microfinance from around the world. And getting this insight took a decade's worth of work and field research. So from that standpoint, eureka moments are few and far between.
So, Ali, what are the barriers then that inhibit creativity? What's stopping the creativity?
Well, barriers primarily arise from how our brains are hardwired. As a species, Homo sapiens, which we are fairly new on the planet. We emerged about 180 to about 250,000 years ago, and since have quickly dominated pretty much every other living species on the planet. And this is because we are somehow different. We can do remarkable things, create languages, memorize whole books, paint murals, play competitive sport. No other species on this planet does these kind of things. Our brains are very sophisticated, but also quite mysterious. But it appears that our brains are also primeval when it comes to processing sensory information, tuned to a brutish reality where danger was just around the corner and it was literally survival of the fittest. That's how our brains are. They are stuck in the species of 180,000 years ago. Now, to explain how we do thinking, cognitive psychologists suggest that there are at least two modes of thinking, system 1 and system 2. So here's a little test. What is 5 times 5?
25.
Now, that was almost automatic. You didn't have to think about it, right? Totally effortless. Now, what about 27 times 86?
Give me a minute.
Most of us will have to do system 2 thinking to figure out the answer. Perform the arithmetic. Now, creativity requires that we suppress this system 1 thinking, which is automatic, which is jumping to conclusions, Now, don't get me wrong, system one thinking is important, very helpful in our day-to-day activities, riding bicycles, washing dishes, crossing the road, but not as helpful when you're required to do deliberate, purposeful thinking, which is what creativity relies on. It is hard to do, can be quite draining, and your brain would try its utmost best to stop you from doing it. It doesn't like it. Instead, it wants you alert and on the lookout for a tiger that might be hiding behind these bushes in case you have to run. So, for example, observe these two lines. Does one seem longer than the other?
Yes, one seems, the bottom one seems longer.
Yeah, but let me tell you, they're exactly the same size, Ian. What you're seeing is an optical illusion, and based on what you're seeing, you're jumping to a conclusion. Now, some people are totally unwilling to entertain the notion that these lines are the same size, but they're not. They are exactly the same size, but they're not willing to entertain that conclusion. Now, riddles are also a good way to force our brains to do system two thinking. Now, here's one I have found on the internet. Carl wins race after race. He is the fastest runner, yet he gets no trophy. Why? Try and figure out the answer, and the key is to shed your biases and not jump to conclusions. What shall I tell you?
Please.
Well, Carl is not a human. Carl is a horse. Right? In a horse race, we all know the horse never wins anything. It's the rider. And when you heard the word Carl, immediately jump to a conclusion. It must be a man. But Carl was a horse. Okay.
Okay, so what do we really understand about creativity?
I suppose the question is, what can we learn from the best creative minds? And frankly, there's a lot to be learned. We haven't done much work in the area, and most evidence is kind of anecdotal. What we do know is that creative people are unconventional. Some of them really push their mental and physical limits to crack problems. If you think of your brain as a television, then the idea is to switch your mind from channel normal to channel alpha. Okay? Some take long walks, others meditate or dance or deprive themselves of sleep. And I'm in no way advocating the use of psychoactive drugs, but read about Sir Francis Crick and his experiments with DMT. So creative people are unconventional, and they'll go to extreme lengths to crack the code, crack the problem. You can't just sit down and start thinking about a problem. Not really. I mean, you might come up with something interesting, but if you want to come up with something truly extraordinary, then you have to force your mind to switch channels. Different methods to do this work with different people. For me, I need a degree of sensory deprivation to enter into an alpha state. The noise in my mind from social media, advertising, and endless to-do lists is lowest at the crack of dawn, which is when I find myself the most creative. Now, consider Jack Ma of the Alibaba fame. Now, Jack talks about the warrior spirit one must have to come up with new things and to make them a success. Now, who are warriors? Warriors are heroes who make personal sacrifices for the greater good. They are brave, they are ready to do anything necessary. Now, Jack Ma really brings out the value of the warrior mindset, self-belief, the pride in his heritage and culture, hard work, and a tendency to pitch his new ideas against huge rivals and winning. What was different about his mindset? He showed flexibility and adaptability in how he configured his ideas, to the extent that it became almost impossible for giants like eBay and Amazon and PayPal and others to compete and outperform his creation, Alibaba. The real lesson from Jack is that one needs to have certainty in their minds that what they know about the world is valid, that you know to be true, and what you know cannot be known by anyone else. Then taking this knowledge and transforming it into something valuable, something that solves a problem better than whatever else is available.
So, not everyone will be able to switch these states of mind or feel like the warrior spirit. Are there any tried and tested creativity techniques that aspiring entrepreneurs can easily use to come up with these creative solutions?
Certainly, Ian. Luckily for us, there's a hack for everything. We can hack our brains if we have the right tools or algorithms. First things first, brainstorming is the most overrated creativity technique out there. And let me tell you now, it mostly doesn't work. There are too many limitations. Forget brainstorming, try body storming. And 50 other techniques that the leading product design firm in the world uses. It's called the idea method cards, card deck. And they're a useful way of testing your idea with real users. Because the notion is that ideas that look good on drawing boards and in theory really work out well in the real world. There's a big difference. So like the method cards, we also have the Think Pack, the Innovative Whack Pack, Killer Questions Card Deck, Oblique Strategies, and many others. And use these directly. And if you are proficient in how they work, you can do out-of-the-box thinking, greenfield or lateral thinking. We also know that no one single individual usually comes up with the whole idea. Any good idea will be a summation of smaller ideas contributed by different individuals. So the question is, we mustn't be too protective of our ideas. When you think you have a good idea, the only way to make it better is by sharing it with others. Obviously, you need to pick and choose carefully who you share your idea with. Because it is possible that some people's inputs might make your idea worse. It can happen. Finally, we must never underestimate the value of spaces when it comes to creative thinking. Yes, colors, textures, interior design, even ceiling height have a meaningful impact on people's ability to exercise creative thinking. So as an entrepreneur, when you recruit people to work for you, you want them to be creative. You want them to be productive. Give their full attention in the 8 hours that you're employing them for. Not mess about on WeChat or Instagram, right? But you have to ask the question, are you giving them the right space to work in to be able to exercise their creativity? So some of the best corporations in the world and even startup now are putting a lot of work in interior design and to bring this sense of play and tinkering to work. And the results are phenomenal.
So, how do we get started?
Start by challenging conventional wisdom, the assumptions on which the solutions around you are designed. Right? So there are assumptions behind everything. For example, challenge the notion, why are socks sold in pairs? Or why do fizzy drinks have to taste sweet? Or why do we have to use a toothbrush and paste for dental hygiene? What you're really asking is the question, why do we always have to do it that way? Now, socks don't have to be sold in pairs or be the same color and pattern. Who decided it had to be this way? Think about it. I mean, no one decided that socks had to be sold in pairs. Why can't we then change this assumption? Work with other unconventional thinkers in your circle and challenge assumptions. Some, of course, will be too far out because most of what we see around us as solutions do have sound assumptions behind them, but many don't. Okay? The creative mindset will require challenging assumptions in design solutions by turning them upside down. Doing that, you might come up with a creative insight that no one else has thought of. And we call it flip, dump, rotate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.